Hello, my fellow hoodlings, and welcome to a new show on the channel. This time, we're having a Theology special, and I'm accompanied by my co-host, Maestra.
Hello.
His channels can be found...
You can find them on, under Maestra Theranthropy here on YouTube. On
1 second, I have to mute the stuff myself.
Oops.
Yeah, either way. His stuff can be found in the description, and we hope that this will be a survivable show on this channel.
Cool.
Yeah. We're talking like angels. No, yes. I'm talking about angels. We're not angels.
No, not particularly.
No.
Not particularly. I've been accused of a lot of things. Angelic nature is not one of them. So, where exactly would you like to start? Because pretty much angels exist everywhere worldwide, irrespective of which faith we're talking about. So which one do you want to start with?
Well, religions such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam say that an important part of angels' work is worshipping the God who created them, such as by praising him in heaven. Some religions, such as Islam, say that all angels serve God faithfully. What's your take on this?
Well, my particular take on this is depends on whether or not angels themselves have any will or ego. So, in Abrahamic faith, in particular, most of them, excluding Islam, the angels have their own unique ego and will. This is why a third of them in Christianity choose to follow Lucifer into hell. Choose to follow the light bringer into him becoming the great Satan, the great adversary. I mean, that's in a certain aspect even in Judaism, because Judaism doesn't particularly have a afterlife heaven, but it definitely has a hell, and it's quite detailed in that hell. And those, for the most part, are patrolled by fallen angels. Because it kind of depends on the different forms of Judaism, but still, Islam's really the only one that denies the hell from having fallen angels. Their demonic lore is a bit weird. In the Abrahamic faiths, pretty much universally, most of the most powerful demons are, fallen angels that have created spawn of some sort. They do get to create a little bit. Destruction is a form of creation, if albeit short term. So it's still not on the same scope as like deetic creation in angelic form. So yeah. My general take on Islam's mythology is it's hard for me to follow because there's two different Qurans, right? There's the Median Quran and there's the Meccan Quran.
Oh, I was under the perception that there was only one Quran as opposition to the New Testament and Old Testament of Christianity.
No, see, okay, so when Muhammad, prior to getting kicked out of Mecca the first time, his particular stories of what his new religion was going to be was very peaceful. This is where almost all of the Islamic text lines that you hear about Islam as a religion of peace. Now, after he got expelled from Mecca for being a crazy person, and he went to Medina, then you have the more traditional Quran that everyone's familiar with. Now, both of those are treated as one book because it's smashed together, but they're horrifically conflicting ideas and views of the world. So it's really hard to parse Islam itself, and I'm not familiar enough with it to really get into where I can separate the angelic lore from the Christian side of things and the Judaic side of things, because most of what Islam does is it just like the bullet point response would be that Christ wasn't a Messiah. The Messiah's never shown up, and we're still living in the Old Testament, so all the Old Testament rules apply, with a couple of few changes. I don't know. They use a lot of the same mythology, though. It's really, really weird how they've structured up their mythos and their monsters and their versions of hell. All in all, I don't feel comfortable enough to address it specifically away from the other two. I'd rather just talk about the Abrahamic faith as a whole in the way they view deities. Oh, sorry, angels. Because, I mean, if we step into, like, Judaism, for example, at least prior to the sundering of the temple and the separation of the Jewish tribes, so back when they still originally had a homeland under ancient Rome, the Jews were a polytheistic religion with their own pantheon of gods. Those gods, for the most part, were high-end angels. Uriel, for example, was a deity. And Uriel was appearing a lot in games and other public media, things of that nature. So, I mean, angels themselves, the Abrahamic faith, are the first creations of God, and this does appear in Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. They are the first thing God creates before he creates planets. He creates the angels, the hosts of the angels. So, I mean, they are his most creations, so they're a little flawed. They, like I said, like in Judaism and Christianity, traditionally, the angels have very little ego. I mean, they have more ego than it's presented in Islam, because they could fall. They did have enough choice that they could make that determination. But part of the difference between angelic light and humankind is that humankind, specifically in that mythology, is the one with the freedom of choice of will, where angels are bound by the commandments of God. So, I don't know. Yeah, I lost it. Talk to me, Ali. I've been babbling for too long.
Well, so that's your take on how angels not fully serve God faithfully in other religions besides Islam.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are other religions where angels are completely egoless. I mean, and that's one of the things. Like, in Japanese Shintoism, there's a set of, I would call them angelic beings that directly serve the kame class, which is the god class of the religious deities there. And they are absolute servants to the point where they are fully, like, they're almost automatons in that way, where they have no ego at all, but they're incredibly powerful, and they're almost like homunculi or androids. Either way is what you call that, where they have no direct will that they can exhibit. Excuse me, I need to get a drink there. If that makes sense. There's other forms of in one of the Buddhist heavens, there's a set of life there that I would think would be considered angelic, because they are creations of the divine, and they also meet the same category, though they have a lot more willpower. And that's one of the interesting divisions between, like, demons and devils and angels, is that you never run into servant demons. They always have their own personalities. They always have their own sense of ego. And it's one of the appeals about them, I think. I don't know. I mean, most of the time, what you run into across the world is the angels themselves exhibit good traits. So Michael's justice, for example. Now, carried to an extreme end, he brings about the apocalypse. And that's what Revelation's about, in a lot of ways. But his general nature is one of fairness and kindness, and it's exhibited throughout his entire personality in any myth he appears in. It's almost like they're paragons of a particular facet of your personality. So they're almost one-dimensional in that aspect.
Hmm.
I don't know. I can get a little philosophical about angels. They're fun.
No, that's not bad at all. Being philosophical is not bad.
Yeah, no. I'm just, you know, I can yabber and yabber and yabber.
You did mention Michael.
Uh,
An Eastern Orthodox church icon of the 7 archangels from left to right would be. Are you okay there?
yeah, 1 second.
Are you trying to see the angels? An Eastern Orthodox church icon of the 7 archangels from left to right would show you Tğᴇʀɪᴛ, not really sure how to pronounce that one, Gabriel, Salaphiel, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Barachiel. Beneath the mandorla of Christ Emmanuel are representations of cherubim and seraphim.
All right. Well, I mean, that's getting into the different hosts of angels right there specifically.
Yes. What would you say is the largest difference between the cherubs and the seraphs?
Well, seraphim are always depicted as fully grown angelic beings. So you don't like cherubs in Greek mythology are angelic creatures too, and they're depicted as babies. In Judaic and Christian mythology, they're shown as like perpetually young children for the most part, like, you know, between the ages of 8 and 12. They're not grown in any way, shape, or form, but they're also not babies with wings and little arrows with hearts on the end of them either. So I mean, in some of the like Persian religious areas, they're almost djinn. Now, when you get into Persian jinn, most jinn are evil, right?
Yes,
there aren't
most.
very kind jinn, but when you step from Persian to Indian Hinduism, the jinn are almost holy creatures at times, because like the major conflict there is Raja. So like that whole region has a different view over that, and their major gift that the jinn have in that particular religious view is that they speech. That's their major power, because that's what they were given. Nah, I mean they don't.
But aren't jinn more like spirits?
It depends on what you're talking about. Like in Persian, yes. In Hindu, no. In Hindu, they're more angelic. It's written as almost the same ways because they're genies, and I mean genies and jinn are the same.
You kind of glitched there. What were you saying?
Pardon me?
You kind of glitched there. What were you saying?
Well, they are genies technically, but the genies and jinn are the same thing. It's just in Hinduism, they're more of like an angelic presence. Because again, they are manifested servant creations of the head god in that pantheon. Like that's part of what I'm using as a determination for this. They all meet the criteria of the head god of the pantheon. Specifically created them. They're not human. They're his host under his control, and they pretty much exhibit his will. And that's a pretty good understanding of angels. It's not that, I mean, because, Valkyrie were angels.
Yes, but before we move on to the Valkyrie, there is a thing I would like to say about the cherubs.
Sure.
You did say that they are mostly viewed as kid-like beings, right?
Yeah, young boys at around 8 to 10. You know, sometimes as old as 14. Sometimes female, but it's typically a young boy.
Although, in let's see here. In Eastern Orthodox iconography, there is, however, some different stuff.
Okay, well, that's Central Europe into Russia, so please educate me in the difference there. That sounds interesting. Today I get to learn. Tell me now.
Easy there, easy there.
What,
Well,
what? Come on.
I'm gonna just jump a little bit here. In the book
Okay.
of Ezekiel, and at least some Christian icons, the cherub is depicted as having 2 pairs of wings and 4 faces. That of a lion, representative of all wild animals, an ox, domestic animals, a human for humanity, and an eagle for the birds. Their legs were straight, the soles of their feet were like hooves of a bull, gleaming like polished brass. Later tradition ascribes to them a variety of physical appearances. Some early Midrashic literature conceives of them as non-corporeal. In Western tradition, cherubim have become associated with the putto, derived from classical Cupid arrows, resulting in depictions of cherubim as small, plump, winged boys. They were quite different back in the day, apparently.
Well, I mean, yes, a lot of ancient writings before revisions. So, like Christianity, the Gregorian revision happened around, I think it was 400, 500 AD. It's around when the first Gregorian revision occurred and the finalized calendar was set by the Roman Catholic Church. And a lot of things changed in their mythology and their history and their writings at that time. So,
Yes.
so I like if you get into like some of the more ancient views, most supernatural creatures were very monstrous. There were very, very few that were human. That's part of the unique difference in human mythology is the fact that most monsters are visibly not human and they are a demon-ish
These
appearance.
aren't demons, though. These were some of the original viewings of cherubs.
Yes, those are angels. Like in Bayonetta, for example, you checked it out when I was doing a little bit of Let's Play on Bayonetta.
I thought we were going to keep the games for the next one.
No. I know, I am. Just really quick, that you had commented then on the bestial nature of the angelic forces, and that's because they're very, very old angelic beings. See, like that's what you're getting at in the cherubs. They are very, very almost like in like Stargate the movie, they're not human. You can tell that. The wings on their back that are feathered is how you know that they aren't demonic, because in that particular mythological tradition, that's the main difference, is they either have white or black wings depending on the faith, or they have bat wings or dove wings. See, like the difference between the two is very clear visually. I mean, cherubs themselves evolved to a more humanistic appearance after a good amount of modern Reformation. The very first bits of Reformation occurred, anywhere from 300 to 500 CE. So, I mean, it really depends on what section of the mythology you look at that determines what type of supernatural creature you're seeing. If it's an angel and you're looking at that, the divine, like almost marvelous beauty that's assigned to angels almost all across Western Europe and the West as a whole, that is a later idea. That comes after the Dark Ages, actually, after at least the first plague hits, and there is something truly terrible. I am unfamiliar, Tiger Dragon. I don't know what that is, but yeah, no, I mean the particular religious view at the particular time. If you look at prior to about 500 AD or Common Era CE, nature itself is primarily the greatest killer of all time. Like, there are things out there that will eat you. It hasn't been that long since civilization was created. You know, I mean, it was at half of what it is now. And we didn't have a fence around the wild parts saying that this is the wild parts we won't invade and remodel. Yeah, we had a fence to keep the wild out. The paradigm was completely different. So an oxen face for, you know, the domesticated wildlife, a lion for the things that will eat you. You know, there's a great deal of visual knowledge acquired in that depiction that at that time is common knowledge that you would need to know and need to know very quickly. I don't know. Sorry, I went off for a bit there. You're being quiet. Dr. Biao.
You got a message in the Hangout chat.
Ah, okay. One second. Let me go look. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, the Hebrew Bible, however,
The Torah?
The
Torah?
Yeah.
Specifically? Okay.
The cherubim are the most frequently occurring heavenly creature in the Hebrew Bible, with the Hebrew word appearing 91 times. Despite these many references, the role of the cherubim is never explicitly elucidated. While Hebrew tradition must have conceived of the cherubim as guardians of the Garden of Eden, in which they guard the way to the Tree of Life, they are often depicted as performing other roles. For example, in the book of Ezekiel, they transport Yahweh's throne, God's throne. The cherub who appears in the Song of David, a poem which occurs twice in the Hebrew Bible, in 2 Samuel 22 and Psalm 18, participates in Yahweh's theophany and is imagined as a vehicle upon which the deity descends to earth from heaven in order to rescue the speaker.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, there are several different hosts of angels. In the Hebrew Bible, specifically the Torah, they go in, most of it is the cherubim, because the seraphim are the direct, you know, that's the highest host. That's the highest, you know, choir of angels, as it's referred to repeatedly. So they are the strongest. They don't move around unless it's serious business. So yeah, I mean, you would expect the weakest and lesser of any, you know, host of creatures to be the one moving around. I mean, in that particular regard, that's almost like in ancient Greek, Hermes, for example, he had a set of followers that were, I would say, more looking traditional as what we would think of as angels in the modern Western culture, where except they had wings on their feet as opposed to their back. All of Hermes's group did that, including he himself. Also on their heads, from their hoods, well, helmets rather. But no, Castillo, yeah. See, mine is Uriel. I really like him personally. He's quiet, and I enjoy that.
Isn't Uriel the one that sees patterns in everything?
He's the silent watchman amongst the highest hosts of seraphim. He's one of the final angels, like Michael and Raphael, that come during Armageddon, and he's the ninth member of the host. And Uriel is I don't know. I enjoy him because he doesn't really have a lot of screen time as far as appearances, but when ever he shows up, something incredible happens. I mean, and that alone, it makes him incredibly exciting for me anyway. When I look into this stuff, I almost read it like fiction, and I enjoy the stories as a fictional experience. You know, I mean, I can't really look at them seriously when I'm reading every one of these histories that I can get a hold of, because they intrigue me. You know, the more of them that you read, the more similarities that you can see between them. You know.
Well, the Archangel Uriel, the angel of wisdom, often gives people sparks of inspiration and motivation as they seek to live faithful lives, it says.
Well, yes, that would be his direct effect as of this moment-ish, according to, I'm guessing, modern Christianity. I'm thinking of like
he's also known to be the Archangel of prophecy and is willing to help. Okay, this one seems a little shady. I have this article up here which says that he is willing to help you develop your psychic powers and intuitive skills.
Oh, absolutely. I'm talking about opening up your third eye, for fuck's sake, and being able to stare at goats and vibrate.
Yeah, that he can provide insights through visions, dreams, and sudden perceptions.
Oh, hell yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about right here,
I wasn't even aware of that.
That's so ridiculous.
I thought Christianity and stuff was against psychic powers. That psychic powers were the sword of the devil.
No. I mean, no, I wouldn't say that. No. Psychic powers.
This is an eye-opener, pun intended.
Yes, but psychic powers are sometimes divine gifts, actually. It's a sign of sainthood sometimes. It's a sign of demi-human power.
Should be able to envision the future, right? That's why they're prophets.
Yes, so well, yeah, you can see the bits or snippets of the future. God's given you a vision. You can sometimes move things by the power of God or your mind or your will. You know, and no, Tiger. I mean, I'm talking across the world as far as where that appears. Like, there's plenty of Messiah figures that can move things with telepathy or the power of God. I mean, it really depends on, like, I'm rather fond of the Isaac Asimov quote, you know, magic is just science we don't understand yet. So, I mean, to be realistic, psychic, air quote, crap names at least sound more like we understand how that works, you know, as opposed to just waffling around on the ground. I mean, the first gods were lightning and the sun, because we had no idea how those worked. As far to it being ingrained in our DNA, Tiger, that is a rather interesting thing. Almost every culture on the planet has angelic mythology. It is really, really interesting. There are a few that I know of, 2 or 3 that specifically do not have angelic influence and angelic iconography. Like, it is a very interesting thing how we think of one of the most powerful forces of good, I guess would say in air quotes. Because in any culture, the head god typically is a just one and a decent one. Like, the ones where they didn't last very long throughout the history of humanity. Babylonia was probably one that people would know of, and they were incredibly brutal group. They only lasted a couple hundred years before they were just wiped away and then spurned on all throughout the Abrahamic tradition. I mean, Babylon is considered like a satanic portal into the humanity, and some of the more strange regional mythology that comes out of the Tigris-Euphrates section, you know, that area in the Middle East. There's like the Yazidi that's the name. That's their name. Sorry, I had a brain fart. I could not remember Yazidi for a minute. Their mythology places them in that way. But, I mean, you know, it's like angels themselves are, especially the seraphim choir, are incredibly humanistic in their presentation too. Like they don't have a bestial presence. And you can go through the entire high host in a good number of religions, excluding I would say Taoism and God, it's I can't fucking remember how to pronounce it. It's a type of Hinduism. They specifically don't have a high host of angels. Like angels are universally a class. They don't have a general class. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, David Goddard wrote the book "The Sacred Magic of the Angels," and since Uriel often sparks their mind with fresh ideas, he sometimes manifests physically through electrical signs. He writes. Uriel has a great affinity with that mysterious force called electricity. His presence is often heralded by electrical appliances fusing and light bulbs failing. He also manifests in thunderstorms. That seems to be a little more of a modern approach.
Yeah, see, here's my problem with any modern writing, any modern telling comes across, especially to me, as modern fiction. Right? And there's a difference between mythology and fiction. I mean, when we're talking about mythology, unfortunately, we can't, twist that. The fiction, we can twist all we want, and we can write the stories that we want to experience. In many ways, those stories are so perfect, they become the very core ideal of what this should be. That's what made them successful. You see, that's what kept these stories alive and the morals in them, because they somehow hit a high enough percentage of perfect. And in modern fiction, sure, I mean, Uriel can be a lightning monster. I don't specifically remember him doing that. Like, his presence is more discussed as, like, the power of him showing up. And there's, I think, 2 myths I know of where he gets into direct physical conflict. But it's very rare, and that's sword to sword fighting with another great demon, which would be Baal, Bahal. I can't remember which one of those it was, but
do you mean Barakiel?
No, Baal. He was Baal is a Babylonian god who in the Judaic and Christian myth is actually a archdemon. And you want to keep this topic on angels, so I don't really want to go into his history, but Uriel and him get into a huge fight at one point in one of, God damn it, I cannot remember which one of the books it is, but it's in the Old Testament, so it would be in the Torah. It wouldn't be in the actual Bible, because like that myth crosses back and forth, but it's an Old Testament one as opposed to a New Testament version. It's one of the few times when he shows up. Uriel is also the one that was sent into Sodom to assess Sodom, and it was upon his assessment that Job at least was allowed to live. Was it Job? No, it was the man and his wife. He was the one who assessed that family was worth saving before God nuked Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, that's another time that Uriel showed up. So, like, his wisdom in and of itself would be an amusing point of him. So, like, see, in the modern fiction of what you just read, where it's a modern retelling of what he is with lightning powers or whatever, that's still, well, it would still work, because, I mean, like, they never got into, like, Dragon Ball Z level descriptions of battles between, angels and demons, or angels and demi-humans, or, You know, like that never really occurs in mythological stories. They're too short for that. It's a lot more of your imaginations involved, because you have to understand a lot more of just the other side myths that go along with this that exist at that time that you wouldn't know because they're not in the main storyline. So, okay, so in Judaism, for example, there's a goddess of hearth and home. She's a very, very tiny goddess, but she appears in the New Testament, for example, in Revelations as the seraphim, but she's not part of the higher host. She's part of the middle choir, but it's the same person, you know, as is written across the genesis of the religion. Because when Christianity first started, they were a bunch of radical culty Jews that had a different idea of what to do with Jewish mythology. So
well, in medieval theology, following the writings of Pseudo-Dionysius, the cherubim are the second highest rank in the angelic hierarchy, following the seraphim.
So then, what's the bottom rank then? And then the bottom rank was always cherubs. I'm unfamiliar with the bottom rank, and I need to grab a drink real quick. So excuse me for just a second, please. Is that all right?
Okay. Right. I will be finding that in a minute, but first off, in Christian angelology, angels are the agents of gods based on angels in Judaism. The most influential Christian angelic hierarchy was that put forward by Pseudo-Dionysius in the Areopagite in the 4th or 5th century in his book, the Coelesti Hierarchia, on the celestial hierarchy. During the Middle Ages, many themes were proposed about the hierarchy of demons, some drawings on and expanding on Pseudo-Dionysius, others suggesting completely different classifications. According to the medieval Christian theologians, the angels are organized into several orders or angelic choirs.
I'm familiar with the choirs. I've been using that.
Drawn on the passages from the New Testament, specifically in Galatians 3:26 to 3:28 and Matthew 22:24 to 22:33, Ephesians 1:21 through 23, and Colossians 1:16, to develop a schema of 3 hierarchies. Spheres or triads of angels, with each hierarchy containing 3 orders or choirs. Although both authors drew on the New Testament, the biblical canon is relatively silent on the subject, and these hierarchies are considered less definitive than biblical material. In the first sphere, we would have seraphims, followed by cherubs, and then the thrones.
Thrones?
The thrones, that would refer to a class of celestial beings mentioned by Paul the Apostle in Colossians 1:16. Living symbols of God's justice and authority, and have as one of their symbols the throne. In the second square, we would find dominions or lordships, followed by virtues or strongholds, with the last spot being powers or authorities. In the third sphere, it would be principalities or rulers, and then archangels, followed by the angels. And that would be the hierarchy presumed by Dionysius. So the archangels are rather low on the hierarchy.
See, that's medieval angelic tradition. I'm influenced and was raised on pretty much a modern view on that, because the modern view of the angelic system, the archangels are the top. They're the ones that are named. Like you said, the bottom tier of angels are basically just a bunch of willpower in form. Like, that doesn't sound like they have any ego at all and are just like, these are my Autobots.
No, in dividing the angels into 3 hierarchies, each of which contains the 3 orders based on their proximity to God, corresponding to the 9 orders of angels recognized by Pope Gregory I.
Okay. That
It's recognized by the church.
I understand that, but that doesn't answer my question as to what because from what you described, that sounds like the bottom host of angels are more like just mindless willpower, which it wouldn't be something. I don't know. I don't register that as a sentient thing. That's more of just like I have 10,000 angelic zombies. You know, basically.
Well, archangels did refer to, well, it comes from the Greek archangelos, meaning chief angel. So it's more like a minor boss.
Yeah, that would be the archangels. You said the very bottom tier, the one below cherubim. I'm lost on that one.
Oh, no, cherubs are in one of the top.
No, the very bottom one. You said that
the very bottom one includes principalities, archangels, and angels.
Okay. Oh, so it's 9 separate categories that you split that out into using. Okay, I see what happened. I got confused for a second.
Yeah, they are separated into 3 different squares.
You got very hyper specific on me for a second, and I got lost. I'm sorry. My bad. Please continue while I recollect myself. I just got lost there for a second because we got hyper specific into one particular religious view. And I've been talking in generalities. And okay, yeah. As far as Christian view, yeah, that would make sense because you said there was 9 according to the medieval church, and Pope Gregory the First was the one that ratified that.
Yes, in the first square there was the seraphim, cherubim, and thrones. In the second, dominations, virtues, and powers. In the third, principalities, archangels, and angels.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, there's quite a few here that we don't necessarily hear about nowadays.
Such as?
Thrones, dominations, virtues, powers, principalities.
Yeah, that lost me for a second. Because, I haven't heard that in a good long while. Because I just, my brain tripped. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that's yeah.
Well, we could take a close look on the thrones, which are in the first sphere and said to be rather close to God. The living symbols of God's justice and authority. It is not unusual to find that the thrones are associated by some with the ophanim or erelim from the Jewish angelic hierarchy. However, there is very little evidence, if any, to sustain this idea. The ophanim, Hebrew for wheels from the vision of Daniel 7:9, are unusual looking, even compared to the celestial beings, plus they are said to be moved by the spirit of other beings, which then raises the question if the ophanim are spiritual beings at all, or if they are purely material beings. They appear as a beryl-colored wheel within a wheel, their rims covered with hundreds of eyes. They are closely connected with the cherubim instead. When they moved, the others moved. When they stopped, the others stopped. And when they rose from the earth, the wheels rose along with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Ezekiel 10:17. Christian theologians that include the thrones as one of the choirs do not describe them as wheels, describing them as adoring elder men who listen to the will of God and present the prayers of men. The 24 elders in the book of Revelations are usually thought to be part of this group of angels. Any comments, Maestro?
Listening, because you're getting into like the particulars of okay. As far as that group of the old men in Revelations, yeah, they were, if I remember correctly, the prayer clerks of God. That would be the second highest or highest group. I think I'm stumbling. A bit.
Listed as the third highest, below the seraphim and cherubims. Yeah. You don't usually go quiet like this. Are you okay there?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm just you completely stopped me and lost me by hyper focusing on this, and I'm a little lost in my head as to the particular mythology, and it sounds brand new, and that's driving me nuts because I know the Christian side of it, and it's my brain's flustered a bit, and it's shutting down. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I didn't intend to shut you down.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, anyway, please continue. Go on.
Yeah. Well, in the second sphere, we have the dominations. Dominions or lordships. The dominions are presented as the hierarchy of celestial beings. Lordships in some English translations of the Tğᴇʀɪᴏ hierarchia. The dominions regulate the duties of lower angels. It is only with extreme rarity that the angelic lords make themselves physically known to humans. The dominions are believed to look like divinely beautiful humans with a pair of feathered wings, much like the common representation of angels, but they may be distinguished from other groups by wielding orbs of light fastened to the heads of their scepters or on the pommel of their swords. So they're basically the nobles of the angels?
At that point, yes, that's exactly what they would be. They have direct human features. They're not the multi-headed angels that you were talking about about 15 minutes into the stream.
Yeah, that would be the cherubs.
Yeah. I mean, you said they were beautiful humans. That's around the Middle Ages where they start getting marbled looks. And yeah, and that's specifically the Christian mythology, and that's where I got lost because I need to go back and study the medieval Christian shit again. I'm rusty on it, and it's bugging me. So I don't want to make a fool out of myself, so I'm starting to quiet myself. Sorry for that. It's just a natural byproduct. I got onto unfamiliar ground for a second.
Well, I might as well continue then.
Yeah.
On the second placement in the second sphere, we have the virtues or strongholds. These angels are those through which signs and miracles are made in the world. The term appears to be linked to the attribute might, from the Greek root dynamis, in Ephesians 1:21, which is also translated as virtue or power. They are presented as the celestial choir of virtues in the Summa Theologica. From the Pseudo-Dionysus, the Areopagitus de Coelesti Hierarchia, probably butchering that, the name of the holy virtues signifies a certain powerful and unshakable virility welling forth into all their godlike energies, not being weak and feeble for any reception of the divine illuminations granted to it, mounting upwards in the fullness of power to an assimilation with God, never falling away from the divine life through its own weakness, but ascending unwaveringly to the superessential virtue which is the source of virtue, fashioning itself as far as it may, in virtue, perfectly turned towards the source of virtue, and flowing forth providentially to those below it, abundantly filling them with virtue. They aren't really described as what their appearance would be,
Well,
but
no, they're conduits, is what they are. they manifest, the very, they keep repeating virtue, but the very essence of what they are. And then
Yes.
fill up others around them. That's why they really don't have a description. At this point, they're more outlaying how you would build a supernatural force. Like that keeps everyone refilled worth of virtue, which is in around the Middle Ages, the Reformations to the Christian views changed dramatically from the ancient texts. And what happens there is that's where like the concepts of the armor of God come from. That's sheerly manifested. Like each one in that particular story is a word, which is a virtue of God. So in this case, you would be looking at, in that story, in that particular type of angel, they keep refilling this virtue power, this godly divine power to other. That's why they don't need a description, because they're not really. This goes back to at the very beginning of the stream where we were talking about angels don't really have will. They don't have ego. Like a battery doesn't have an ego, and that's a battery, or more of like a power exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you do say power, there's a third placement in the second sphere. Powers or authorities. The powers or authorities from the Greek exousia, see Greek root in F310. The primary duty of the powers is to supervise the movements of the heavenly bodies in order to ensure that the cosmos remains in order. Being warrior angels, they also oppose evil spirits, especially those that make use of the matter in the universe, and often cast evil spirits to detention places. These angels are usually represented as soldiers wearing full armor and helmet, and also having defensive and offensive weapons such as shields and spears or chains, respectively.
And here you get to the actual military.
Yes.
And they control the entire universe and make certain that it keeps moving like it's supposed to. At the second most powerful. So the higher ones are going to be even greater than that.
Yes, I am listing downwards though, so we've already covered some of the more powerful ones.
No, I understand that. I'm just, in Christian mythology specifically, what happens with the angelic hosts is to show you the intense power of God. I mean, if these are the followers, who is the master?
Yes.
I mean, that's the second most powerful of the angelic hosts move the universe around. Well, that's a pretty huge power.
Actually, let's see here. Who was it that moved the cosmos? Yeah, the powers or authorities that ensure the cosmos remains in order. That would be on the 5th, actually, out of the 9.
Okay, whoa. So then okay. I got lost again. Haven's right. I am tired. I'm sorry, MissOwley, but I am not doing so well at this.
Well, we are at the 1 hour mark. If you would like to quit early, I can understand.
Yeah, I would, because getting into the weeds on medieval Christianity, I'm getting lost, and it's. I am sorry.
That is fine. Although, as we are on the 1 hour mark, I would like to make use of some of the last time here to
Absolutely.
basically say thanks for this channel has reached 100 subscribers, and that is amazing.
Yes, it is. It really is.
Yes. Unfortunately, I also noticed that on the same day as I actually had to go and put my grandmother in the earth.
Well, I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. It was a lovely commemoration afterwards, though.
Yeah, it did go well.
Oh yes.
Uh,
It was a short funeral service, and I was actually one of the 6 people carrying the casket, which was a little rough.
oh, you were a pallbearer?
Yeah.
Was she remembered well?
Yes. We talked a lot about her upbringing, how she was raised on different lighthouses of the coast. And to diverge a little bit, during the World War II, she was actually one of the rather lucky ones, because she was always confused later on whenever people would talk to her about the Nazis. Because since she was raised on a lighthouse, her family's position was actually quite important to them. So instead of getting harassed, she always got chocolate whenever they visited. She was just a kid too then, so... Yeah.
Well, that's luck of circumstance, and,
Yes.
it is rather amusing, I must admit. My goodness. And it shows at least that the Nazis knew who to bribe.
Yeah. But yeah, she was remembered well, and at the commemoration we talked a lot more about how she lived. And
Yeah.
one of her first jobs when she moved away from the lighthouses was actually to be working as, what's the word again? A housemaid, actually. And also we talked a lot about how she used to be a really willful woman. Because when she met her man, they bought this house, and my mother and her siblings talked very fondly about how whenever she had an idea, she would tell him that, and then he would be the builder making it happen.
Wow.
Yeah. She was apparently a very creative and willful person.
Well, did she live well?
Well, the last year when she was in the care home, she had started to lose herself quite a lot, often asking where her own parents were. Or, on the other side, about when her kids would be coming home from school. Mind you, she's 89 years old, and that's losing herself quite a bit.
Well, that's at the very end. I was asking across her whole
Actually, it's
life.
been for the last full year. But she did pass without any pain.
That's good. I am sorry for your loss, I am. But it sounds like she lived a full life.
She would have turned 90 tomorrow.
Wow. She almost made it to 90.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And as she was a very Christian person, as opposition to me, I'm not a very Christian person. But yeah, this theology special is kinda in her honor.
I understand.
But hopefully it will be a series to be continued.
No. I want to be a part of that. I just I want to talk to you after the stream's over really quick, because on the next part, instead of perhaps doing angels with perspective across the world and tip on Christianity, we pick a specific time range and regional range to discuss.
I agree.
I think that would make a much better presentation.
I agree.
Well, okay, cool. Because I would definitely like that. That would be nice. And yeah, I understand why you would want to do something in dedication to her, and I'm cool with that. Absolutely.
Also, I've also heard that on the server I have, a link will be propped up before we end the stream. One of my staff members recently lost his mother as well.
Oh.
I don't know the particularities about her passing, but my thoughts go out to him as well. Now, let's see. I should add that link. There's the link to the server.
Cool.
And we'll hoot at you later.
Thank you guys for having me. Take care, all.
Bye.